Hello, folks. Hello. Let's see. The rest were alive, thankfully. Let's see. We're alive, thankfully, and all their equipment intact. A few scientists. They didn't grab many scientists in the yard, but a few were taken prisoner and interrogated. They were now being asked about the gas and its nature. The man on the inside and the man on the inside who was on the outside. Colonel... Where the frickin' hell is this guy's name? God darn it. How the hell could the name be missing? Oh, Lander Moon. It was on the outside of the facility. Didn't tell them much about the gas either. Didn't provide much warning about the gas. Fam was sure, always knew, starting from the start, that the facility had its share of secret weapons. Had a trump card or two. If the gas in the underground was their trump card, then presumably things were looking up. As they certainly couldn't use the gas in the rest of the facility unless they wanted to kill themselves. Fam was sure that... Fam doubted they did. They were men of the West, after all, who were quite fond of being alive. Let's see that they did. They're quite fond of being alive. That seems strange. Back in Kamja-Klak, Fam's homeland, death was something accepted as inevitable. That life was just a grain of sand. That life in this world was just a grain of sand compared to the vast desert, the vast sandy beach that was the next world. Most people in Kamja-Klak believed in an afterlife. Fam did as well. Even the atheist. Even the officially atheist guerrillas of the Northern Liberation Army and were often somewhat religious. Fam recalled seeing them praying many times in the field, and he saw many wearing prayer beads and reading old village prayers. They'd often stick those things in their pockets. Things in their black pockets. Right next to their standard issue black book of equalism. Even the leaders of North Kamja Clack were not exempt. Still, there were even religious people among the leaders of the North. There was the current regime leader was a former monk at a monastery who took up the banner of revolution after his Thessalian massacred most of his comrades after, because most of his fellow monks were sheltering nationalist guerrillas somewhere back in the old century under the old calendar. Hopefully this stuff doesn't look shallow. I have come up with a lot of stuff, historical stuff for the stories, but not much opportunity to put them in because, we're mostly focused on the present. And I noticed a lot less world building in this one because, it's not set in Europe, and mostly not set in Europe, and most of the stuff I came up for was for Europe and its history, and most of the stuff about Asia was pretty much the same. I gotta come up with more stuff for Asia, Japan, other countries. Let's see. Many of those guerrillas Bam fought alongside accepted their deaths. Many of them accepted that they were already dead. Bam supposed that for some people, if they accepted death, inevitable, it was easier for them to live and to fight. Many guerrillas back home were firm believers that they were fighting to bring about equalist utopia, that it was the best utopia, that it was the best they could, that it was the best. Such a future was the best course for Kamja Clack. Certainly sounded better than living under Thessalian imperial rule or Zetan imperial rule, as the Southerners were puppets to the Thessalians. Let's see. All this political stuff makes me itch. There was some tension topside before Fam came below. His loots questioned. Let's see, loot. Oh, I don't have any notes for this story yet. Probably because this is exposition, and exposition doesn't require much consideration. As long as it doesn't contradict what came before, that's the main thing, You don't want to contradict yourself. Let's see. His lieutenants questioned. His questions questioned the value of this operation. which had siphoned a lot of... speaking of siphon filter is one of the inspirations for this story. I just want a big, crazy, warlike, conspiracy thriller kind of thing. Heard they might make a new siphon filter. Hopefully it'll be a continuation, even as much as I would like to see a remake of the original ones. Hopefully still set back in the time where they were set, because, you know, if you update it to modern times, all that technological stuff would make more sense, I guess, but still. Anyway, siphoned off a lot of resources that could have been used in other operations. Operations more vital to the uprising. Tiger to real name. Tiger, fellow Captain Tiger, fellow Camja Clacken, a fellow Clackham. Okay. No problems as far as I can see. That's often said just before a disaster breaks out. Clack. The fellow Clack on. Pretty vocal. The operation will probably succeed, Tiger said. But it's likely a valueless victory. We should have hit Dalada and knocked out. We should have hit Dalada, knock out the communication centers of the enemy opposition, make them maybe seize the FBI building. Let's see, what's the FBI again? NPB. Probably should be a different abbreviation since it's not in the since it's not in an English-speaking country. It's easy to ever take all those people hostage, and so on, and so on, and so on. Fam muttered, "I'm not in charge of the operation. I'm not I'm not making many decisions. I'm not one of the guys making decisions. We had grander plans, but they were stopped thanks to the efforts of the NPB and Dominique Richington and others. Get our revenge on them someday, hopefully." Tiger muttered. Then, "You need to plan things out. Things like that out." Replied. "A damn shame the Krullo's plans were discovered and broken up." Tiger nodded. "Sleeper agents." Nod. All those sleeper agents and the blackmail, it would have been a much stronger footing. Cool. As I said, yes, I agree. Sam replied, said, And now let's cease this useless chatter. We can't change the past, and we can only move forward. An army goes to war with the assets it has, not what it wants. Right? I replied, sounding a bit hopeless. Let's see. I want our homeland free of the imperialists, and I want Jade to have their freedom as well. They should reform their empire, and we should form an alliance with them. The Westerners and the Red Bloc must be challenged. And two superpowers, great alliances, is not enough, in my view. Enough politics, Sam muttered. Shortly after, Sam got the report. I'm getting a report from Londa Moon, down in the underground with all that gas. Poisonous gas. He got in his clean suit and mask and went down with his team. Back to present. Several bodies were found not far from the ladder down into this sector, into Londa's sector of the underground. They had collapsed facing the ladder, falling a bit short of escaping. Sam for a pulse on the men, and found one was dead and the other was alive, but barely. Sam sent him and his men, had two men cart him up the ladder while he moved the dead man to the adjacent wall, putting him in a sitting position. He then took some white marker and wrote "dead" on the wall above him. We can't mess around down here for too long, Sam said, told his men. The chem experts believe we got maybe 10 minutes before we start feeling the impact of the gas. And after that, it might come on quite strong and abruptly. And after that, we're not certain how long before we're overcome. And God only knows how long after that we'll be overcome. Right, sir, the man replied. More unconscious men were found soon after, clad in full armor suits with NBC protective masks that apparently did nothing or apparently were totally ineffective against this deadly agent. Both men were dragged back to the ladder area to be carted topside, where medics awaited help them, tend to them. The anti-poison agents available. There was apparently no antidote. The scientists claimed there was no antidote. The captive scientists claimed there was no antidote. And Fam was pretty sure they weren't lying. A few dead men were found next. Then the elevators of the underground. It was risky. The underground area. They were still receiving power. Thankfully, the elevators, they were still receiving power from the main base. And they had adequate lifting power to get a bunch of bodies on. To cart a bunch of bodies, heavy bodies, to the surface. 3 living but unconscious armored boys became the test subjects to see if the elevator could handle them. They were carried up to the surface successfully. One was pronounced dead by a medic shortly after. Vam wondered if he had got one last glimpse of the sun before he died in the sky, before the darkness overcame him. Soon a dozen men had been recovered. One of the last found was on Londa Moon herself, who Van stumbled across in an alcove in a dark alcove that he almost missed. Took away murmur down the wall above him. So people waste time checking on the corpse. On a corpse. She was unconscious and drooling from her mouth. She had no mask on. Van picked her up and got her out of there quickly. He left his comrades to check on to find anyone else unaccounted for. Sam got her to the lift, and they both went up to the surface. She seemed unresponsive at first, but one of the medics managed to bring her back to consciousness with a shot of adrenaline. She had trouble breathing when she woke up, but didn't pass out or suffocate. She rolled from her back to kneeling like pose, and then vomited vigorously. You saved me, Wanda Moon gasped, looking up to Fam. She was not a pretty picture, with her face all veiny and bluish, and vomit, green vomit, stuck to her lips, and in some of her long black hair. Don't speak. You don't have to. Fam replied. Did you get me antidote in time? Wanda Moon asked. There's no damn attitude. Antidote. Fam replied frankly. Either it kills you or it doesn't. Either it kills you or it doesn't. Seems like we got to you and most of your men in time, so you'll recover. Fam got on the radio then. One last man was found. But he was dead. The gas said, but he was dead. He had been wounded earlier in a shootout in the hallway that Wanda had reported to him. Is there a character named Linda in this story? I hope I didn't say that Londa is like a Western name. Wouldn't make much sense. I assume around the time of World War II, there weren't a lot of Japanese people giving their kids Western names. Probably not even if they were of, like, say, mixed Western, Eastern stock, you know. I'm not sure how many people were like that in Japan back then. Probably not as many as today. The Japanese back in World War II times were pretty damn obsessed with racial purity, all that stuff. They were like, you know, it was kind of very Nazi-like. But enough about that. Let's sign off here. Have a nice day, folks.